Hi there, welcome to the eCommerce Nurse podcast, our 37th episode. I'm Karina McLeod, ex-Amazonian and CEO and founder of eCommerce Nurse and Vendor Society. Today, we're going to be talking about how to drive growth using Amazon advertising without reliance on AI software. We have a special guest, Mina Elias, a seven-figure seller in the supplement industry, an investor, Amazon PPC expert and founder of Trivium Group, an Amazon advertising agency. Mina has spoken on every major stage in the Amazon industry, consulted over 400 brands, including 3 aggregators, has been on over 100 podcasts, and continues to be a leader innovating in the Amazon advertising space. Mina's goal is to change the way people perceive Amazon PPC and empower them to take back control and dominate their ads. So hi, Mina. Thank you for coming on our show today.
Thank you so much for having me. What an amazing intro. You must have come up with that yourself, right?
I love that bio. It's really incredible, the amount of podcasts. And as you say, you've we met at Prosper when you were speaking at Prosper, and you've definitely got some amazing content and a story to share. So it would be great if you could start off and share your story, because of course you started off as seller before you really went into Amazon ads.
Yeah, the reason that I do so many podcasts and share so much information is because when I started MMA Nutrition, and I'll tell you the whole story, but when I started, it was so lonely, and there was no information that you can rely on out there. And people would just say, do this, do that. And I hate that, versus like test this and expect this. And if that doesn't happen, then do that, which is, like how anyone should really teach. But it was a lot of like gurus and misinformation. And so, when I figured a few things out, I said, I'm going to share as much as I can with everyone so that they don't have to go through the hardships that I went through. And, it was very, very tough to find like good information back then. And I'm sure it's still tough, right? Because now there's the other end of the spectrum, which is over information. And it's like, wow, well, this guy said do this, and this guy said do that, and this guy said use this software. So I'm just trying to help people as much as I can. So the story is, my background is in chemical engineering and chemistry. I came from, so I was born in Egypt, raised in Dubai. When I was 18, I went to college. It was 2011, and I went to America to study. So I got my bachelor's and master's, worked up the corporate ladder, the very standard, the only life that I knew existed, right? Which is you're either a celebrity or a soccer player or something, or you're like a doctor, lawyer, engineer, one of the three. So I followed in that path, and then I just went from one job to the next, very, very unhappy. There was nothing wrong with anything that I was doing, right? I was getting a good salary. I was, working in good companies. I had a nice place to stay, a car and everything, but it just felt like, something was wrong. I was just living a life that I didn't enjoy. And towards the end of my last job, it was, I think, September. I was on vacation in Egypt visiting my parents. I was doing a lot of research on supplements because I'm a huge fan of supplements. I've always been making my own, mixing them at home, that kind of stuff. And so my dad asked me, he said, why are you researching supplements so much? I said, the stuff on the market's not that good. So I have to always buy this and then add this and that because of the clinical dosages, all this stuff. He said, why don't you make your own? And so that kind of was the first trigger of I tried the whole corporate, right? And I gave it my best, and I was always a top performer. I was always the number one. And what's left, right? Maybe this could work out. So I went home, did the research, figured, okay, maybe I could start a supplement company. Let's start with one product. I did research. I created the formulation for an electrolyte powder. Because I was on keto and I'm an MMA fighter. So I've been training since 2013. And I figured, what, if I'm going to make an hydration powder, because there's nothing on the market with no sugar and high sodium. So I made it and then gave it to a few friends, took it myself. And there was really positive feedback. So I said, what, let's go for it. And I created the company. But then when I tried selling the product, which I didn't know anything about selling, it didn't go well at all because I did, I was like, okay, maybe I'm going to go to the supplement stores, and they would just look at me weird. They're like, oh, maybe leave a couple samples. We'll let you know. And so that didn't work out. And I'm like, why am I doing all of this when Amazon is where I buy all of my supplements? Like, I hated going into the store where someone would come in and be like, oh, like, let me show you the best creatine. I'm like, no, like, leave me alone. I know better than you. Stop harassing me. You're also fat. So, I don't want your advice. So that's the kind of people that were working in the supplement store. So I stopped going to the supplement store. I would always buy everything online because I would do so much research, open like 6 different, creatine powders and all this stuff, and have the studies there and third party, like Labdoor, third party testing, all of this stuff. And then I would be like, okay, this is the right one. And obviously, instead of guessing if it's going to be available at the supplement store or not, I just buy it on Amazon. So I said, let me try getting on Amazon. And I started calling like Amazon, support and all this stuff. I'm like, I want to sell my products on Amazon. How do I do it? And finally, they sent me an email that walked me through how to create a Seller Central account and all of this stuff. So I got that. And then once I was up, and this was like September 14th is when I had the conversation with my dad. November 2nd is when, November 22nd is when I was live on Amazon. So I had made the product, shipped it to Amazon, had the Seller Central account and everything, had a listing going. And so it was a very short period of time. And I'm like, okay, I'm on Amazon. Now what? I had 100 units. So I became like obsessed with, consuming as much knowledge as possible. Like, how do I make this work? And the 2 main levers that I could pull from what I see was reviews and PPC. So I started asking friends for reviews. Every single person I ever met in my life, I messaged them to leave me a review. And then in terms of PPC, I was like, okay, let's try turning all of the knobs. And I would watch a video, on YouTube, whatever, they would say something, and it became a period of just like obsessive learning how to do Amazon, asking people. I got into all of the groups, Facebook groups, all of that kind of stuff. And then 6 months later, I got fired from my job, and I was like, it's my chance to go all in on this business. I was doing 4K a month in profit. So it was like, it wasn't too bad. I was doing like, I think 20K in revenue, 4K in profit. So I was like, okay, but I couldn't live off of it. So I packed up all of my stuff, went to Egypt to live there for 4 months while I was building my business. And then, 4 months later, I came back to LA. I was doing 10K a month in profits. And so I was like, okay, I could live off of 4K, reinvest 6K, which obviously, wasn't accurate, because in Q4, I would have 0 profits. In Q1, I'd have amazing profits. So it was very unstable. But during that time, when I was in Egypt, I started seeing a lot of questions coming through the Facebook groups that were, I'm like, okay, I can answer this. So I started giving back a lot, and I gave back and I gave back and I gave back. And that's kind of how I got started in being known in the Amazon space. And then but that helped me because, so I got on the podcast again, just always sharing my experience, not what you should do, but what I did and what the outcome was. And it's worth, if it worked for me, maybe it's worth you testing at least, showing all of my work and everything. And no high level, no like, cool ideas, just like, here's what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis. Here's what I'm testing. And an aggregator hits me up and they're like, hey, we want to train our in-house team to run PPC. Can you train us? So I said, cool. I said, I'm down to do it. I know how to do the ads pretty well at this point. We hit 7 figures in the supplement brand. And so I'm like, okay. They said, but we need to test you on one brand. And they were like, okay, take this brand, run it for a few months, and we'll let you know. So I started running this brand with me and my 2 employees. And 4 months later, they're like, you beat out 6 other agencies. We're gonna move forward with the proposal and all of this stuff. And that's when I'm like, okay, I'm decent, pretty good at PPC, so good that this aggregator hired me over 6 other agencies who are very well known and very reputable. So maybe this is what I should be doing. And so I still have the supplement brand. It's like now a client of the agency, but I started Trivium Group, which is an Amazon ads agency. And I'm, just trying to add the most amount of value possible that we could to every brand. And like, unlike so many other brands, we really do not rely at all on software. So like, we still only use spreadsheets. We still only do things manually because we choose to give so much care. Now, I think with the bigger catalogs, you're going to need some sort of software, but no AI, definitely no AI, no all of that stuff. And yeah, I'm just on a mission to, give as much of my knowledge and experience away, on podcasts, webinars, conferences, whatever. And you know, just I know that the more value you add to people, the better of a life you're going to live.
That's awesome. I love that story because there's a journey there as well, right? In terms of, it isn't that you are a seller and you've been a successful seller, but there's also this journey of selling and figuring out, actually you're pretty good at something, an aspect of that, and you've been able to then create an agency. And I love the fact in terms of how you talk about sharing, and because there's so much noise out there, right? There was limited information, there's too much information, there's a lot of noise, and it's almost overwhelming for businesses trying to look for that. And you of course share that content. You also mentioned something interesting about the software part, because that's again a lot of noise. There's so many, not only it's the Amazon agencies, but there's the software out there, and there's so many different players, and we speak to so many different businesses that are like, should we be using software, should we not? I love the fact that you kind of go back to the Excel part. Can you talk more about that aspect of going back to basics and not being reliant, I guess, on software?
Yeah, so it all stems from you know, software have not all of them are bad, but a lot of them have an agenda, and this agenda is to get you to, you know, believe that by using the software they're going to make these changes. They have a very sophisticated algorithm and all of this stuff that is going to lead you to success. That's not the case, right? Because advertising on Amazon is pretty simple. You're trying to identify keywords that are going to be profitable. The only way to do that is to test a bunch of keywords. So you start by testing the keywords. You get the data, and then you make evaluations based on that data. If it's a good keyword, you continue to scale it, increase the bids, maybe whatever, increase budgets. Or if it's a bad keyword, you lower the bids or add as a negative if it's an auto or broader phrase. And so that's it. You know, you're kind of testing all of these keywords. You're identifying which ones work, which ones don't. Now, having a software in there that is going to start, you know, changing things daily, there's not enough data. The keywords have not collected enough data for you to make those changes. And we know that attribution is delayed up to 7 days. Now, we've tested downloading our bulk sheets, you know, the last 7 days today, and then we wait a week and the exact same time period, and there's up to 100% discrepancy. So a keyword that shows that it had a 35% ACOS could actually end up being 15 or whatever a week later. And so, you know, that's another thing that, you know, makes it the software a little bit iffy. Also, the reliance on software, which is, I'm going to set some things and I'm going to let it be, goes against what I say, because I'm retroactively I'm always looking at the data and then making a decision, looking at the data, making a decision, versus saying, okay, if it's above 50% ACOS, then lower the bids. And just having that rule, continue to hammer. Now, even if performance starts declining, there's going to be no reevaluation of like, okay, maybe this rule is not correct. And so what I've noticed with Amazon PPC is it's so much iteration. And iteration, in layman terms, is this. When you go into the shower, you turn the hot water on and you put your hand under it. If it's too hot, you turn it a little bit. If it's too cold, you turn it back a little bit. That's iteration. And software can't do that because it's heavily rule-based. And if it's AI, who the hell knows what AI means? You know, like it's just maybe a series of algorithms that no one really knows. And I've talked to so many you know, companies. I'm like, okay, so what are the rules based on? And it's, you know, never really a clear explanation. So how can I trust my tens of thousands of dollars a month in advertising? Like that's my money. Like that's money that if it gets burned, you have no guarantee that it's gonna get back. So for all those reasons, I'm not fully against software, but I'm against any sort of automation. Now, when does software come in handy? When you're able to do things at scale or make decisions at scale. So for example, I know I'm looking at all of my keywords and I'm like, okay, I know that I want to identify all the keywords that have spent over $17 and haven't made any sales. So I'll click a filter, the software will show me all those keywords, and then I'll go through and then I'll add as negative to all of those keywords, you know, maybe just by like quickly checking, making sure they make sense, right? But what if, for example, you have a main keyword and so this is why you can't go full automation. What if you have a main keyword that has a 85% equals, but is driving 35% of your total sales, in advertising sales? I'm not going to lower that keyword, the bid on that keyword. I'm going to lower everything else that is not really generating sales and monitor the results. Now, and then there's the second layer, which makes everything super complex, which is this. The attribution is not correct. So you look on Amazon, you say, I spent $10 on this keyword. I made the $30 in PPC sales and whatever your organic sales are. We can't even detect organic sales on a keyword level. It's not accurate. We know this. Why do we know this? Because today I'll spend $500 and it'll say you made $1,000 in PPC sales and $3,000 total. And then I'll cut my 500 to 250. And it'll say, your PPC sales dropped, your organic sales also dropped. So why did my organic sales drop? Because PPC is influencing this organic. There's either a lack of attribution on Amazon. It's just not accurate. So the data that we're getting is really not that correct. And the second thing is, it could be that maybe the buyers are being influenced by the ads, which then leads us, there's only one solution, unfortunately, is the iteration, the shower method, which is, I'm going to optimize this keyword. Let's lower the bids. Now, what happened on an overall scale? Our ROAS improved. Great. That was a good move. And so now you have to start segmenting and being very granular with all of the things that you're doing. So now we don't even scale and optimize at the same time. So I'll never increase the bid and add a negative at the same time. Or sorry, that's a bad example. If a keyword is going out of control, we're going to add it as a negative. But I'll never increase the bids, increase the budgets, and then lower the bids on some other keywords. Because then I'm taking two different actions, which now there's going to be, we're not going to be able to interpret the data accurately. Versus if all the actions that I take are just increase. So increase bids, increase budgets, increase bid by placement. And now watch and see what happens to total sales. Okay, I know from these actions, this was the result. That's positive. Good. Then I did a good thing. So Amazon's very complex in that reason. And that's why I'm so against relying on the software and any sort of automation, because it doesn't even have enough of the data to make correct decisions. Also, things are changing. So, as certain weeks come, like in the year, higher ACOSs should be more tolerable versus in other weeks, lower ACOSs, are more fine, are more of the normal. So a lot of things like that. And so for me, it's just kind of boiled down to, I'm just going to do iteration. I'm going to choose one of two goals. It's either scaling for revenue or optimizing for profit. And then I'm going to take the actions. And the only thing that I'm going to use any sort of software, like an Excel macro, or, there's obviously Atomic or PPC Ninjas. Those are decent software where you could go in and say, this is what I want to do, right? I want to take these actions, and they'll help you take it, but they won't just do things for you.
Yeah, it's very interesting in terms of what you're saying, because it's definitely one of those conversations that we have with many brands, and I guess the biggest part here is how you manage that at scale, in the sense of when you're managing, let's say if you've got one or two products in your range, it becomes a lot easier to manage than if you've got 100 SKUs that you're advertising. How do you manage that when you start dealing with quite a large catalog, for example?
Yeah, so it's always going to be limited to how much energy and attention you can give. And so what we've had this challenge, right? Because up until very recently, we were taking on a maximum of 5 to 7 products, right? Parent products. Variations are fine. Obviously, they don't count, because each product, you have to give it its own attention. Is it in the launch phase? Is it mature? All of this stuff. Now, as we've grown the catalog, now let's say it's 30 or 50. Analytics is kind of the number one thing that we need, right? If we have good analytics showing what's going on with each product, it makes things a lot easier. And the second thing, beyond the analytics, is what is your goal for each of the products? So once that's clear, we have a few things that are like guardrails. So adding negatives, right? Any keyword that spends a lot of money and doesn't make any sales, we're going to add it as a negative. Any keyword that doesn't contribute significantly to the number of sales, but has a very high ACOS, we're going to lower the bids. So those are things that are always happening to keep things at bay. So, and then we choose to focus on a certain amount of products at a time, because we're going through, again, like we'll only have the same amount of hours in the day. So I'm either going to half-ass 20, 30, 50 products, or I'm going to do amazing for 5 and leave the other ones at, kind of for now. So what we do is say, okay, what are the 10 ones that we really want to focus on? Let's focus on those ones. And those ones will have their own focus. Maybe we're ranking for keywords organically, we're scaling, we're doing whatever, right? They're getting attention. Now, the other ones, they have these guardrails. And the way that we do PPC is like we go through a scaling period. So we increase spend, increase the number of sessions coming into the listing. Hopefully the conversion rate stays the same. We're going to increase sales, but our profits are going to shrink. So during that scaling, we just want to get a lot more people, a lot more sales, and it's going to help organic rank. And then we go through a profitability phase where we optimize for profit. Now, after I optimize for profit, I should, I'm cutting down the spend of all of the inefficient stuff. I'm keeping the good stuff that I discovered during scaling. So now I should be left at the end of the day with a little bit higher profit. And so once I reach that point, we make an evaluation. Guys, this product is now, in a profitability phase. Should we just leave it at bay? And if it's not a priority, we leave them and we let them run as profitably as they can right now. Again, there are guardrails. Anything that spend money, we're not going to aggressively look on how to grow this product. It's just like stay there, make the most amount of profit that you can. For now, we're going to focus on these 10. So we focus on these 10 for a period of, let's say, a month and a half. We scale them for 3 weeks. We optimize them for 3 weeks, and now we swap some out. And realistically, software, no software, the only way that you're going to be able to, focus on 100 products at once is if you have one employee for each, let's say, 10 or 15 products. You're going to have one employee dedicated to 10 or 15 products. And at that point, you're going to have to ask yourself the question, is it worth it? So let's say, I have really good, smart people for, let's say, $1,200 a month, as a salary. So if my top 10 products are doing, $20K, $30K a month in profits, great. I can dedicate a 1,200 salaried employee, and you can focus on that. And then the other 15, if they're not there, if it doesn't make sense to hire a 1,200 employee for them, then I'm going to be like, okay, let's keep them, let's focus on them at certain times. And then when they eventually get to a point where they're making 10K in profit, then let's hire someone out for them. Then it'll be worth it. And that's how I like to think about it, because people come to me and they're like, yeah, we have like 67 ASINs. And I'm like, oh, 1 second. And then, sort by sales. Yeah, you have 8. And 8 of them are 95% of your revenue. So all of these other ones, what is it nice to have a nice big catalog so you can go and flex and say, yeah, we have like 67 products. Yeah. I'm like, you have 8 products or 10 products, but there are the rare occasions where we do like clothing brands and things like that. So I don't want to mention everyone, but when we have these like products that are like actually 70 products, each with like 2-3K in revenue, I don't know how to deal with that. I haven't figured out a way. I would love to, at some point, figure out a solution and build a division for every type of business in the industry, right? We're super set up for like supplement and CPG products, right? 4, 5, 6, 7. And we just like, we can scale really aggressively. But I've talked to like a lot of enterprise companies and I asked them like, how do you guys deal with like, an X or a Y, like big name brand, right? That has 100 SKUs. There's always an order of priority. And there's always like we're going to focus our energy here. Okay, this is fine for now. Let's focus our energy here. Okay, this is fine for now. And otherwise, you're going to need to just keep hiring more and more people to manage the catalog.
Yeah, I think that's such a valid point. It's that 80-20 rule. And you do see that where we speak with clients and they talk about their range and it's just too wide. And actually, as you say, it's the top sellers that's really driving that revenue. And it's not realistic in terms of that overall stretch. So I love the fact that how you are quite clear and know to rein that in and actually make the top lines really work than just spreading resource thinly. And I guess that's sometimes when the software comes in, when people almost brands want to have that wider ads running across all and not fine tuning on those products. So
Yeah.
the software is working and they're getting sales, but they haven't fine tuned, which is what, really made those specific products, like their top sellers, as efficient as they could be with manual intervention, right?
Exactly. And like there's always going to be a point where you can say, okay, we want to focus on these ones. They're small, but they have potential to grow. That's fine. So let's keep these other ones that are big, let them run very lean and let them just keep milking out profit. And also at the end of the day, guys, I mean, you've dealt with a lot of aggregators too, so you know this. They're not buying you based on catalog size. They'll probably say, 8 of your products are generating most of your sales. We're going to kill everything else and we're going to keep those top 8, because their supply chain becomes so much simpler. And it's worth, cutting out the small amount and all of this dead weight of like 60 products that are barely generating revenue.
Yeah. And you made an interesting point about category. I know clothing, I was part of the clothing launch in the UK at Amazon, and it's just a completely different kettle of fish in terms of, and it's seasonal. So you can do so much work, you get momentum. Next minute, the product's out of stock and then it's no longer being listed. So yeah. Definitely can suck the life out of, you just spend a lot of energy on something that potentially doesn't have longevity and momentum. And so we're talking about software, but there's this organic piece that I really wanted to touch on in terms of, do you take that into consideration? So you talked about those different stages. How does that then influence the organic aspect?
Yeah, I think organic is, so the goal, in my opinion, of advertising is to drive as many people into the listing in as cheap as possible. And part of that is organic, which is free traffic. And so maybe it's an upfront investment into ranking, but then once the organic traffic comes in, then it's free. So for us, what we do is we use Data Dive and we use Helium 10. And I like to take Data Dive and we'll benchmark where we are now. So we'll say, okay, here I am versus my 5 or 6 top competitors, and I have 25% of the total search volume on page 1. And I identify a certain number of keywords with a priority list that I want to target. And then we start running keyword campaigns, direct, broad phrase and exact, so to get the synergistic value, as well as, we don't just like to pick like one keyword. We'll usually pick like a root. And I learned this from Brandon Young. We'll pick a root, and let's say that it's electrolyte powder. So we'll pick electrolyte powder and 4 or 5 other keywords that have electrolyte powder as the root, or the word electrolyte as the root. And we'll run ads for all those keywords. So every conversion helps, and we benchmark, and then we add into Helium 10 keyword tracker, and we track the rank. And we start spending money, broad phrase and exact, for those keywords, bigger bids, bigger budgets. If my general tolerable ACOS is 50%, I'll let it go to 100% with no problems, just to get the conversions. Because based on what we know from Search, Find, Buy, the number of conversions significantly impact your ranking, your position. So we're just going for the largest number of conversions. I track everything, how much money I'm spending on this and all this stuff. And I'm looking to see my organic rank rise, and then hold it there, even if it's, I'm losing money for 30 days or whatever, but I'm holding it there. And it shouldn't be like that you're losing that much money. If you are, your conversion rate needs fixing before anything. And then we hold it there for about 30 days, and then we start tapering things down. And then we go and we check Data Dive again, and it says, okay, you went from 25% of the search volume on page 1 to now 27%. And I'm like, great. We just, we improved there. And, we're cutting down the spend, so we're not spending as much anymore. And we're tracking the organic rank, hoping that it sticks. Sometimes it does. Sometimes, it falls down. And then we just have to find that the amount that we're willing to spend, that like the happy medium, where we're willing to spend that money and in exchange get that organic rank. And so that's what we do. And it's constantly a cycle of, okay, what's the goal for this month? What's the goal for next month? Which keywords are we going to go after? And just constantly going after those keywords. And at the same time, something that is really a huge lever to pull, that not enough PPC people talk about is conversion. So
Mm-hmm.
testing your price, getting more reviews, having a 4.5 or 5-star rating, better main image, better rest of images, videos, questions on the listing, enhanced brand content, Amazon posts, virtual bundles. Just maximize everything that you can on the listing. And I always like to say, you don't have to overcomplicate it. Just go look at your top 2 competitors and put yourself in the middle. And what are they doing better than you? Pick one thing and do it, and then pick the next thing and do it. And then eventually, if you're as good as the top ones, that's great. And then you have a chance to beat them. But that's another huge lever to pull, because you can have a 50% ACOS, and a let's say 7% conversion rate. And if you improve your conversion rate from 7 to 14 with a few of those things, your ACOS will get cut in half. And so your solution could also be, because it's all part of the equation, your traffic and your conversion rate combined, your cost of your traffic. So we like to calculate cost per session, which is, I go look at my 30-day ad spend, and I look at my total number of sessions, PPC and organic. Why? Because we already talked about it. We've seen that PPC affects organic. So I'm just going to blend everything. So I look at my spend, I look at my total sessions, which is the unique visitors that came into the listing, and I look at the cost of each person to come into the listing. So let's say that's $1. So that $1 multiplied by the conversion, the inverse of the conversion rate, which is the number of people required to make one conversion. So if you have a 10% conversion rate, that's 1 divided by 10% is 10 people. So $1 times 10 people to make one conversion, that's $10 cost per acquisition. And if I know that I have $10 in profit per unit before advertising, I'm at break even. To improve that number, I'm going to cut some of my ad spend down and hopefully maintain the sessions and sales, or I'm going to increase my conversion rate. And so if I just double my conversion rate, I go from completely breaking even to now making $5 profit per unit for every sale. And then like that $1, I can cut it down by 20%. So now I'm at 80 cents cost per session. So now it's $4, to make one sale, or the CPA becomes $4. The net profit after advertising becomes $6. So it's an equation. It's just a simple equation. And each, like the PPC has the 2 components, or the traffic has 2 components: paid traffic, organic traffic, and then the conversion has conversion rate. And just constantly solve to increase this one and decrease that one.
That's crazy. I love the way you talk about things. You go into that finite detail, and that's where you really see the true efficiency, right? When you do, because there is a kind of part where you can go too broad and you don't end up, you're just touching the surface. But sounds like your experience is going into that detail. You've got incredible amount of knowledge in your ads, and I just love hearing sort of how you manage everything. How do you manage that from a point where you've got all this knowledge, you're growing with clients, and you've got this team? How do you then make sure that, because you say that you share all of that, I'm guessing you're sharing a lot with your team as well to be able to filter that through the organization?
Yeah, so very, very good question. The first, so I did a few things, right? And it's crazy that you mentioned this. I was in an offsite like a month ago with my team in Dubai, and I said, guys, what feedback do you have for me? Like, how can I be better? And they said, you need to spend more time with the team, because you have so much knowledge. That so my head of advertising said, I got so good at advertising because I spent so much time with you. So like, imagine if the entire team spent so much time with you. So, the first thing was I had to do this very painful 1 week locked door, just of downloading every single thing in my brain into video content. And so I created a massive, like we call it Trivium University, which is a massive like video research, which, by the way, anyone can get access to if they're part of Trivium Tribe, which is the consulting group we have. But it is everything in my brain that I could possibly download on paper: how to improve click-through rate, conversion rate, how to do anything in the Amazon console, like an SOP of everything, every piece of the ads, all of the possible issues that I've encountered. So that was step 1. So this way, everyone can watch all of that content and at least get a surface level thing. And then step 2 was every Monday and Wednesday, I spend 1 hour where the team comes to me and they're like, okay, I have this issue, we're seeing with the client. We scaled and they're not so we start looking. I'm like, okay, the cost per session 6 months ago was this. The cost per session now is that. Look at the total sessions. We increased the ad spend, but the sessions, are 25%. Let's look at the market trend. Let's look at the keyword trends. Let's look at, competitor trends. Oh, it looks like this product is just trending downwards. The organic search volume is not there. And so that's why it's so much more expensive and so that's how they're getting all of the information, from me, is they're just coming to me with problems. And I'm like, okay, let me just try and solve it live. And sometimes, or most of the time we're able to solve it. And if we hit every single possible thing, let's look at competitors, market trends, how much, ad spend was before and now, did they ever go out of stock, cover everything, conversion rates, recent reviews, maybe they got 3 1-star recent reviews and that's causing an impact. If we cover all of the metrics, something always comes to the surface. Like there's always a root cause, and it's like we do a root cause analysis, and then 5% of the time we're like, I don't know, who knows what's going on. It's something, and we just can't figure it out. But that's how I've been able to really, take a lot of that information and pass it on to them. And, I try and do that here too. Like I'm doing later today with Stephen Pope, PPC Ask Me Anything. And so we're going to try and get all of the questions from people and then answer it. And, I'm just, for me, like I will lose nothing by sharing everything with the world, because I don't sell the knowledge. I sell the execution. I sell the ability to do it every single day, consistently, without fail, with backups and all of the continuous improvement. So that's what we sell, not the actual knowledge.
And I love what you just mentioned there about sharing. I know in the past, I've always been one for sharing content. And I remember an ex-colleague of mine was like, why do you share all this stuff? You're effectively teaching someone to then go and do it. And I said, but they're not executing. All I'm doing is sharing. But it's different when it comes to actually implementing and doing it. And you can't copy that. So I love the fact that you touched on that. And for those that are listening, and to wrap up, I mean, I would love to talk to you more, because you've got such knowledge in this area and it's fantastic. And I'm sure our listeners are like, wow, writing notes and thinking, or probably want to reach out to you. In terms of like, if somebody's sitting there and they're thinking, right, okay, I was all up for AI, some software, now I'm on the fence. What would be that one tip for a brand that's contemplating whether or not to proceed with passing it over effectively to software?
I mean, software is not going to solve your problem. So if you already know what to do and you want to do it faster, go ahead, pick the best software and go forward, no problem. But if you think that the software is going to solve your problems, you're going to have more problems. And because I thought that software is going to solve my problems back in, I think, March of 2019, when I launched my brand, I thought that software is going to solve my problems. I used the software and it destroyed everything, because, it's just like thinking that, you're going to hire someone and they're going to come in and they're going to explode your business times 10. It's not, you're looking for a silver bullet, and silver bullets, unfortunately, don't exist. That's why they're called a silver bullet. So, and I've been hurt so many times, and with Google ads agencies, and so many times I've been hurt because I'm thinking, man, if you're thinking, man, if I hire Mina, like we're gonna make 10 times more money. That's not gonna happen. If you hire me, I'm just gonna do that piece of the puzzle, perfectly. That's it. And then you still have the 99 other pieces of the puzzle that you still have to work on, and you have to keep assembling a team to execute each part of it perfectly. And then once you have the perfect team and everyone's executing perfectly and you have a great vision, that's when everything is going to explode, right? And it's going to look like an overnight success, but it's actually you solving 100 pieces of the puzzle and setting up a system and a team and perfect execution around that. That's the overnight success. But it's never like, let's hire Mina. All I'm going to do is just bring more people to your listing. If you have a super high conversion rate, life is going to be great. And then your supply chain has to be perfect, and you have to have the perfect cash flow and capital partner to scale. And you're going to you know, it's that's it.
Yeah.
Like if you're expecting someone to solve your problems, there's with business is only, it's for me, it's always been more problems. It never decreased the amount of problems.
That's awesome. That's a great tip in itself of it isn't just that piece. And I did a podcast a few months ago, and somebody actually said advertising is like the cherry on the cake, but there's so much more there that you need to make sure is being executed. And you're completely right. And thank you so much, Mina. I've really, as I say, you've got so much knowledge in this area, and I'm sure our listeners are really taking away some golden nuggets. So really have loved you coming on our show today. And for those that have been listening, you probably want to know more about Mina and how you can reach out. So Trivium Group is an Amazon advertising agency partner that helps brands scale their ads profitably on Amazon. And you've already heard from Mina today in terms of how they manage and can scale and optimize your ads. So if you want to know more, go to triviumco.com. Is that the best way of reaching out, would you say?
Yeah, so a couple of ways. Triviumco.com, get a free audit. You know, we can always show you everything that we would do if we were in your shoes with your ads. And I mean, it's very, very valuable. If you want to reach me directly, you can go to Instagram at the Mina Elias, or LinkedIn, Mina, Mina, Elias, Elias. But yeah, I'm pretty accessible. Feel free to reach out, ask questions, and I'm happy to answer.
Awesome. Thanks again. Thank you, Mina, for being an awesome guest.
My pleasure.
And thank you, everybody, for listening today.